I have this question about the nature of the not knowing, because it's very close to my heart, and I find a really deep relief in this not knowing, in this, because I can recognize this spaciousness inside. It's freedom. There's no burden of needing to know something, to be something else, and there's a lot of clarity there. And it almost feels as when I'm walking in the street in this not knowing, I'm almost floating. It's just moving in something which is open, beautiful, and makes a lot of sense, a lot of understanding there. But there's also the popping of a voice inside. For example, something that I see or something that I look, or even there's a beautiful woman walking in the street and I really like her, you know, she's beautiful, and there's comments coming in this kind of, in this spaciousness, you not knowing. And sometimes it's kind of like a little struggle, is either this or that, you know, kind of like, is there anything that needs to be done? And I know there's nothing, there's no doing, it is as it is, it arises, it appears. And also the issue of the complete intimacy of that which I am with that which appears, the union of the knower and the known, that we speak a lot about this.
Let's first, you know, before the intimacy of the known and the knower, let's just stay with the question about not knowing.
Okay.
So just to clarify that when we speak about not knowing in our meetings, we're speaking about not knowing what consciousness is, not knowing what I meaning the reality which perceived right now, meaning consciousness. That's how consciousness is defined, as that which is real in our experience, which obviously perceives. So not knowing refers to not knowing what consciousness is, what I am. It does not refer to not knowing a certain attraction towards, you know, a woman that appears in your space. The attraction is these sensations, these thoughts appear within you, and it's pretty clear. There's a clarity between attraction and repulsion. Attraction is a leaning forward, and repulsion is more of a leaning backward. So what is your confusion when it comes to that? Can you
Yes. Yes, not knowing what I am phenomenally, it speaks to me. It speaks to me directly. It speaks to me directly because it gives this spaciousness, this freedom from a need to define anything that I am. So all this kind of need to say I'm borderless, I'm this, I'm that, is not required. It's kind of clear. It's clear that I'm nothing, not phenomenal. And yet the phenomenal appears anyway. So it's not a contradiction, but it's just an observation.
I mean, there are various, you know, pointers, various insights, and each insight has its own place, you know, its own significance. The understanding about for example, the non-location, the non-locality of consciousness, non-locality of I, has its significance. The insight about consciousness being borderless, edgeless, has its own significance, its own relevance. And being not knowing, that understanding is more experiential, more like a lived quality where you engage in whatever appears to you without defining yourself in any manner, sort of responding in a certain appropriate manner in the moment without a sense of me or definition about yourself as being somebody. Your personal self isn't engaged in not knowing, in being not knowing. Yeah, there is no contradiction between the various pointers. Every insight, every understanding has its own place, and it manifests. The understanding takes place whenever it takes place, whichever specific understanding it is. And yes, there's also the understanding that the phenomenal world unfolds within the spaciousness of awareness and does not necessarily define you as somebody. It doesn't necessarily define consciousness. The reality is perceives. There is an understanding, and there is, of course, living that understanding.
Yes, I think I understand, because it was kind of almost like, I suppose, this not knowing, it's creating kind of like a spaciousness. So maybe it's more like a visualization of some description. I don't know. Maybe you're right. And it's not either or, phenomenal or non-phenomenal.
I wouldn't refer to not knowing as a visualization. It's very simple. Whenever you ask yourself, what am I in this moment? And the answer is, I am this or that, or I am this but not that. That's when you need to ask yourself, well, upon what basis, upon what data, upon what evidence am I taking that position?
Okay.
And as you contemplate this question, you will find that you come out empty-handed. And therefore, being empty-handed at that moment, you could drop that self-definition. And that is what being not knowing is. It is not a certain visualization. It's not an activity of mind. It's not a visualization. It's not a contemplation of some space or a certain sensation of the space. Although being not knowing has no structure, so it is sort of space-like, or presence-like. But I wouldn't be engaging the mind in any visualizations or in contemplation of a space-like experience.
Okay.
So to remain sober, whenever you ask yourself, always in the moment, am I this and not that? And the answer arises to you, well, I don't know. That is being not knowing. And when the reply appears to you that, yes, I am this and that, but not that, then at that moment you can ask yourself, well, on what basis am I this, but not that? On what basis am I the sensations, the thoughts, the feelings, and not the world? Because the world, events, perceptions appear in the same space that thoughts and events, sensations, and the weather appear in the same space, which is a space of awareness. So then you can ask yourself, on what basis do I define myself as sensations, thoughts, decisions, and exclude world events? What are the rules there that define you as this and not that? You will find that there is no valid reason for you to make a distinction between thoughts and sensations and the world. Experientially, there are no dividing lines between thoughts and the world. They appear to you simultaneously in the same space. So, not knowing is our natural state when we are not knowing what we are.
I also thought about the not knowing as kind of total openness. So maybe that is total openness. Yes,
openness, because not knowing is like an open stage. Yes, it is a total openness. And what will reveal itself that more and more as you are not knowing, meaning what will reveal itself as you are not knowing what you are, is that this not knowing is a borderless universal. So the universality of consciousness establishes itself not via some mental activity, but via the erosion of the belief that I am this and not that.
yes, I understand. It's moment per moment, this investigation and verification. That
but it has to.
I'm not dependent.
Joyful. It's a joyful.
Joyful. Yeah.
Joyful.
Yes.
You are cooking something in the kitchen, and then the thought arises to you.
Yeah.
Am I? What's? You start exploring inner sensations of maybe there's some tightness in your habitual tendencies of body. it's a joyful, and as it's joyful, then this contemplation will appear to you more and more often because it's joyful.
Yes.
It's not in mission. Not in mission.
Sometimes I look at things as tasks, you know.
Oh,
Kind of.
yes.
Atma vichara.
Yes, right,
moment by moment. You know?
Yeah.
And then openness, I don't have to do anything.
Yes,
It's beautiful.
you are that effortlessly. You are that. It's not some experience or state that the mind sort of looks for. No, it's more relaxation of the mind and a losing your faith in the belief that you are this and not that, and seeing that there's really no valid reason for you to separate yourself in any way, in any manner, or to define yourself in any way or any manner. Because that would be conceptual.
Yeah. It's funny that, not funny, but it's so interesting that I found it that it really flows joyfully, naturally when I play the piano and when I check a dog on the table at work. So there's something, you know, I don't know, it's something natural and
you enjoy that.
Immediate, yeah, joyful, yes. Or speak to the clients or things like that, yeah.
Well, the more you experience the joy in your work in whichever way, you realize that it's the joy that really is significant. And why not be joyful right now without any conditions? Because if you place any conditions upon your experience, you are poo-pooing on the joy. You're putting sticks in the wheels of the joy. But you are in this moment, just not knowing and unconditionally free, non-judgmental. You can experience whatever is appearing and deal with whatever is appearing in whichever way you can, the best you can. Then there is no time for you to judge yourself or judge the other. So it's possible to be joyful every moment.
Yes.
And this joy, of course, is this shared joy. It's a joy when you and the other are the same presence, the same being, the same consciousness. And when you and the world are not separate, you and the world are the same reality. But joy doesn't mean you're jumping up and down every moment, you know. It's different when you're playing the piano, or when you're cooking, or when you're with the client, or when you're shopping. When you're shopping, doesn't matter what form it's taking in the mind. The joy permeates all the forms, all the.
Yes. Yes, I found there are moments I just walk in the streets, it could be absolutely full of people, and it just comes.
Yes.
Just walking in the street and meeting people and smiling, and everybody's smiling back as well. It's kind of like almost like an exchange, unspoken exchange,
Yeah.
between me and the people that come along. This sort of kind of a recognition of something in the other, almost like a mutual recognition
Right.
of something really
Yeah.
special.
You
Something
know,
really special.
you live in London, a big city, so a lot of people,
Yeah,
going places. And what we overlook when we are in our personal bubble of the me, my worries, my concern. My concerns, meaning I've already defined myself. I've already reduced myself via my self-definition. When we are together, but we are not really together because we are in our own personal bubble, it's like we are in the same ocean, but not everybody's aware, or most of us are not aware we are in the same ocean. We feel that we are in our own personal ocean. I lived in New York City for 12 years ago, and I would walk on the sidewalk, sometimes Midtown. For some reason, I had to go Midtown. There would be this whole wave of people on the sidewalks. I mean, masses of people coming together to the lights, stopping, and then walking across the street. There is a certain flow to that, a certain harmony to that from a certain perspective. But sometimes you look at somebody and you can see that they're preoccupations. I mean, there are preoccupations that are practical, but there are also unnecessary preoccupations, psychological preoccupations about me and my life and me in time and what's going to happen to me or whatever. But, because we are not separate, there is no separation in consciousness. When we are in the presence of people, or even in the field, the energetic field of people who are happy, it affects us in some way.
it does. Yes. I met with our Francis groups. I sent you a photo about that.
Oh, yeah, nice.
And it was so lovely to meet like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
And after a few minutes, I didn't actually know some of them. Mm-hmm. It's kind of dissolved completely. And it was like they were good friends for years. We've known almost all our lives.
I know.
Like this friendliness and
right.
flow,
Yes.
And it was a fantastic experience.
Yeah.
It was so lovely. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Like children going into the playground.
Yes. That's right.
Yes.
Exchange things and talk
it's lovely
about.
to experience that. Yes, I'm glad
about you and about Francis, about reality
yes.
and everything, and everybody was expressing, joyfully.
Yes.
Some glimpses, and it was so nice, and it just fills you with happiness.
Yes,
we're just sharing this happiness.
Absolutely.
Of what we are. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just want to say thank you, Magdi, for you and Francis and everybody that's really guiding us through the way. We all one. We all in this amazing path, and we are very grateful, all of us. I'm sure I'm speaking behind of other people as well.
Okay, so I've been doing this contemplation. What I do is I ask myself, and I just learned this a couple of weeks ago from this other teacher about contemplation, and she suggests when you going into just asking the question, is it true that this is, and this is not Byron Katie or any of that stuff, this is just contemplation. You ask, like, let's say there's a lot of, like, I have a lot of fear about stuff, and so I ask myself, I just ask in general, is it true that I'm in danger, or that I'm not safe? And so that automatically takes me out of that sense of that I know that there's something to be afraid of, into a space of like not knowing, like you guys were talking about. So I don't know if I really should be afraid of something. I don't know what I'm afraid of sometimes. So just asking that question takes me out of that that feeling of being convinced that there's something to be afraid of, and into that openness that you guys were just talking about. And I've been doing that these last couple of weeks. So I just wanted to add that in there. And yeah, and I just, as you guys are talking, I was realizing that I'm still, without even knowing it, without sometimes being aware of it, I'm so convinced of everything I feel like I know, that when I hear you guys, like the conversation you guys just had was really taking me out of that. When I really don't know. I don't know what I am, who I am, what this is about. And when I make that statement, when I think of that, it does open it up. It opens things up for me where I'm just, and I even feel my body relaxing when I do that.
Mhm.
So, but it's, so this stuff is so sticky, you know, this idea that I know, like I know something, and I'm convinced it's true and all that stuff, and I don't.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, it's very obvious that we know that the body is a male body, that the body is, 5'11". We know that the body is named Frank or Magdi or whatever. So there are some things we know definitely about the body. We know that where the body resides, and so many things about the body and about the world. But when we talk about I don't know what I am, we are not talking about I don't know what the body is or where the body is. No, we're talking about I consciousness. So we confuse I with the body. So it's important to be clear that, yes, there was a lot of things that I know about this body, how healthy the body is, a history of the body, etc. But what the reality which perceives that which is, that is not phenomenal. That is not, has no name, has no age, has no location. So that's the not knowing refers to knowing a lot of things about the body, which is not an issue, but not knowing what I/awareness/consciousness is.
And the not, like in Meg, so the not knowing kind of opens it up to the what we call the noumenon, right? And that, but the noumenon does know. So there's a little bit of a
yes,
right, like a dichotomy.
That's a good point. Yes, because yes, when I don't know what I am, then all what remains is that I am, and I cannot actually say that I am without knowing what I am. How could you say, for example, I am a hippopotamus without knowing what a hippopotamus is? You see, it's maybe a silly analogy, but in order for you to know that you are, then it means that you know what you is. So yes, consciousness is self-knowing. It knows what it is. And as you drop the belief that you are anything else, as you drop the belief that you are the body-mind, what will in time reveal itself? That in fact you know what you are. What reveals itself as the belief that I am something else erodes itself. As it erodes itself, as it dissolves, what will shine in the place of I am this and not that, what will shine is the I am this consciousness, and this consciousness is real, it's universal, borderless. It is the reality, my reality, and the reality of the one reality. Yes. So this dichotomy is an interesting point you are bringing up here, Frank. This dichotomy refers to consciousness itself being self-knowing, as opposed to the mind knowing, oh, I am Frank, I am this and not that, I am the mind but not the mountain, I am the body but I'm not the river, etc.
Yeah. Awesome. Beautiful.
Okay.
Thanks, Magdi.
Yes.
Appreciate it. I'll
Okay.
give myself.
Okay. Okay. Bye.
Thanks.
Hi, Magdi.
Hi, Andrew.
Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Interesting thumbnail there.
I was feeling cosmic today.
You are speaking from the cosmos speaking.
I hope.
Okay.
Humanity all over the planet is feeling in crisis these days. There's political things, there are wars. I mean, in this country, it seems like China and Russia want to have a war with the US. Then there's the climate crisis. There's all sorts of things happening. Are we to respond to this with a sense of transcendence, somehow getting above it all and being at peace anyways? Or are we to immerse ourselves in it, come what may?
It depends, Andrew. It depends on what's the significance for you. It depends on the circumstances of your life. For example, you work in some sort of enterprise that is related to the environment. There may be some things you could do. You are a politician, God forbid.
No chance.
There may be some, some decisions that, you may take that will affect in a minuscule way, but and also it depends on whether something is speaking to you and where it's speaking to you from. Okay. So what I like to talk about is where it is being spoken to us from. Where from? Are we coming from fear, worry, anxiety? Are we coming from a place where we need to save the world? Are we coming from a place where we have a local crisis happening in our environment, or where are we coming from? So Francis often reminds us that this world is a tragedy. It starts with birth and ends with death. So the outcome is already a doomed. It's a doomed game. The deck is stacked against us. So it's a tragedy. The world is a tragedy.
It's only a tragedy for the body.
Yes, it's a tragedy for the body. That's absolutely. So from the perspective of consciousness, what's the tragedy?
Right.
What's the tragedy? There is a volcanic eruption, or there is a tsunami, or there is a Hitler, or there is a war in Afghanistan. From the perspective of consciousness, it's completely insignificant. It's only relevant from the perspective of the body and the mind. So how do we balance both of these things out?
Exactly. Thank you.
And there isn't like a rule of here is the rule. No, there is just your life. I mean, what you know experientially, what's happening in your life experientially, your thoughts, your perceptions, your sensations, what's arising for you is your experience. Now, in our experience, most of us, we operate from a belief that the world is made out of separate entities. That's a model. Experientially, the world is made out of consciousness. It's one reality. Experientially, we only experience consciousness. But from the belief model, from the conditioning model, we believe that the world is made out of separate entities. There are the good entities and the bad entities.
Right.
And we're hoping that the good entities will vanquish, that the universe will rise more and more good entities and less bad entities. All that is mentation, all that is a model. In fact, our experience and hopefully our understanding will line itself up with our experience. But our experience is always one reality, one consciousness. Therefore, it means that we have access to the entire realm, because it is one reality, one consciousness, and I am conscious, I am consciousness. Therefore, I have access to the entire realm. And how do I help the entire realm? How do I help the world, which is in turmoil? Well, I can only do so by sticking with the truth and living by the truth. The truth is that there is one reality, not two, and that we are, and everything is this one consciousness, this one reality. If hopefully we are clear about this truth to a certain extent, what remains for us is to do our best to live according to this principle, according to this understanding. This is quite different from believing that there are good people and bad people out there, and that we need to save the good people from the bad people. That's a very different model. That's a dualistic model, that we need to save the planet from the people who are destroying the planet. That's a different model from the model. There is one reality, and there's one consciousness, and everybody shares the same reality, shares the same consciousness. And whenever I act from that understanding that the other, the so-called good or bad other, is my very self, it's the same consciousness. It's a different approach. It's not a bypassing, okay, saying, oh, well, yeah, there is a lot of turmoil in the world, but there is one reality, therefore nothing bad is happening in the world. No.
Right. That's what I want to avoid.
That's not what I'm talking about at all, Andrew. I'm talking about living and making your decisions and making your actions. Sometimes you act, sometimes you don't act, from that understanding that everybody and everything is myself. And we don't know what form this action will take, because we don't know ahead of time. No one has a crystal ball. But the approach is to, as much as possible, diffuse the notion that I am this and he or she is that, that we are separate, and that we are separate not just from each other, but separate from the world, that we, in fact, we are the world. Our body is the universe. And
I'm sorry, please
share the same being.
I feel like I have understood that many times, and yet I have a foot in both worlds. One is the world of concern for what happens, concern for other people, and I think that concern can remain. But
Of what use is your concern?
the concern for what's going to happen in many countries, the concern for Ukraine, right? Or just an example.
But of what use is your concern?
I don't like to see people suffering.
I don't like to see people suffering also, but I'm talking about concern. I'm not talking, we don't like to see people suffering, me and you the same, but people suffer. I mean,
Yes.
There are earthquakes, there are avalanches, there are tsunamis, there are people who are very afraid, and they become fearful.
Yeah.
All of these things, are part of.
I think part of me living in that movie, I guess it is, getting involved in that movie. And then part of me is more like what you say, just the consciousness, right? That within the universal consciousness, there's not really a problem. We watch, but then I find myself watching and feel sort of callous. I slip back and forth, Magdi.
Yeah, but if an opportunity presents itself to you to do something,
Sure, yeah.
and you have the capacity to do something, and the interest and the will to do something, then you do it. I mean, it depends on. It's not a mission to save the world. We're not on this planet to save the world. That's not our mission. We're on this planet to come to understanding. But if there is an opportunity that presents itself to you, then you can take that opportunity. There are so many things happening in the world, and our life, of course, we have a limited exposure to all what's happening into the world. And what can you do about the situation in the Middle East, or what can you do about the Taliban in Afghanistan? I mean, really, realistically, we don't like it, of course. But realistically, you can affect in your circle, in your limited relationships and capacity and potential to do things. You can have a certain impact, which we should not minimize the impact. We don't know the impact of the small things we do. We don't know. A smile at the cash register to somebody who seems to be overwhelmed, busy, been standing for 3 hours on their feet, hey, how are you doing? How are you, man? That must be tough to be standing for all these hours, You don't know impact of, like you can put in a liquid a certain precipitate, and the precipitate will may crystallize, but we don't see it right away. We don't know.
I agree. I found that at work when I go to work. Just there's a joy in just responding to people.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's weird. I get hugged by people at work.
Yeah.
Nice. I know there's a connection, and it feels good because there's love and humanity and kindness being expressed there.
No, love is whichever way we express it in our life is very profound. It's very beautiful.
It is.
I think it relates to the angst in the world, like you were saying about so much misery in the world. It relates. It has an impact on the world in some way. And again, it's not about saving the world. This dream is not about saving the world, because the world is doomed.
That's true.
Yeah, it's more about understanding. I mean, like in a few billion years, the sun is gonna obliterate the earth. And so what? I mean, we know that it's already been scientifically demonstrated.
Right.
So it's you give importance to whatever is arising in your experience, including helping others in whichever way you can, or I don't know, expressing your sentiments, but it's more in the moment, how things present themselves to you.
Okay. Thank you. I think you've answered my question, and I won't take any more of everybody's time. But thank you, Mike.
Nice to see you, and to also get a glimpse of the cosmos here.
Thank you, Magdi.
All right.